Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast, celebrating filmmaking, storytelling and cinema across the island of Ireland. Today we catch up with writer Alan O'Gorman, whose feature film Christy hit cinemas on the 29th of August. Christy tells the story of two brothers with turbulent pasts in the childcare system. They find their lives once again intertwined and must make peace with their troubled history in the hope of a brighter future. This podcast was made possible with the support of Screen Ireland, who also supported this really beautiful film. Have a listen to the trailer here.
Do you have any idea what you've thrown away, boy? You're never gonna get a foster home like that again.
You're Shane's brother, aren't you?
I am, yeah. Christy.
Where'd you get the chain?
It was Mam's.
Unbelievable technique. You must have been watching Mary Poppins, oh yeah?
Christy, there's someone here for you. Hey?
Nah, in bed after work.
Come on, don't be boring.
What's Shane like then?
You don't really know him, do you?
Right, lads, let's go! You have no idea, boy. I'm the only one who ever looked after you.
I didn't ask you to do it, did I?
Just can't let the past get you down. You can't have a future.
The minute I can get out of here, I'm gone, man.
Nah, I like you here.
Me and your mother, they were like that, Christy.
Sorry about her. I can hear you. You were meant to.
Check this scrawny kid wearing clothes too big. Scrappy little fella bit like the toothpick.
You're after cremating the sausages.
It's hard, boy.
They're black with dark.
Till it's like so. Why is the sound of the Northside? What?
That man's a wizard, boy.
The Northside.
You're salt to the earth, Christy.
Yo, hey, that's how we do it in Cork. That's how we do it in Cork, kid.
Thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to chat to you.
Oh, we're delighted to have you on. So we're definitely going to get into Christy because it's such a gorgeous, gorgeous film. But I'd love to talk to you about your career and working as a writer. And I was just wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about what your journey has been like going from Cork to Manchester to America.
Yeah, no worries. So I grew up in Cork. I didn't set out to be a writer really. I kind of read a lot when I was younger and would have written little bits and pieces, but I kind of didn't do it for many years, all my teenage years. And I actually went to college to be a history teacher. I studied history in UCC, and that was my big passion. I was way more into history in school than I was English. So that was the plan, and then it didn't kind of work out, I suppose. After I did my undergrad, I kind of took a bit too much time off, and I was just working odd jobs around Cork, just kind of having a bit too much fun. And I was working in a call center, a few different call centers actually. I didn't really know where I was going, and that I started reading again, like fiction, and really kind of fell into just law. I just started like reading every book I could get my hands on, and then I started writing a little bit off that. I just got back into it and was writing little short stories. It actually started. I was doing night shifts in a call center in Cork, and I started writing short stories about my friends, that like just for them, like, and kind of taking the piss out of them, and I would send it to them, and they were like supposed to just be like humorous, but people like some of my friends started encouraging me. They were like, these are actually good, like you should do a bit more writing. That's kind of, I suppose I was a bit insecure about like showing them to anyone unless they were funny, I think. So that gave me a bit of confidence to actually start taking writing a bit more seriously. And then long story short, I started deciding I would go back to college, and I was caught between going back to study history again as a master's or doing something else. And then I didn't even know you could do like creative writing as a subject. So when I found out that there was masters in creative writing, I started applying to a lot of them, and I was very lucky enough to get into the University of Edinburgh creative writing program. So I'd lived in Edinburgh the year before, just working in the Fringe Festival. So I loved the city. So that was kind of the start of my journey back towards writing, becoming, taking myself more seriously and trying to be a writer, I suppose. And that year gave me a lot of confidence and made me feel like I could, follow this.
So you were you were kind of working with the festival. Would that have been a practical arrangement, or would it have been, like a kind of love for that live performance, or would
Not really.
It was picking things up as you were there as well?
Yeah, I was never really involved in like the arts world. Like I was always um curious, I suppose, about it. But I would have been when I was a teenager. I think I would have always wanted to do more things involved in the arts. But I just had a lot of insecurity, I suppose. I wouldn't have put myself out there, or like I would have just yeah not pursued anything to do with the arts. So that was it was a window into for me. I was just working on a box office selling tickets, but I was hanging out with actors and comedians and stuff all the time, and that was it was fun. I did that 3 years in a row actually because when I went back to study. Um, but yeah, this I was writing fiction at the time, and I wanted to write short stories and a novel, and that's kind of what I was pursuing. It was only I always loved film. I should say that before that, when I was like still in secondary school, I worked in a cinema for like 4 years in Ballincollig. So I was watching movies all the time, and like so I always loved film, and I probably would have at some point later pursued screenwriting too. It wasn't really like the plan, but it was because my friend Brendan Canty, who directed Christy, he was directing music videos back in Cork. I was in Edinburgh, and he kind of found out that I was writing and was looking to like start, doing narrative short films. So we had been buddies when we were younger. We'd kind of drifted apart a bit, and he just messaged me and was like, "Listen, I'd love to try and write a short film script together. Are you up for it?" So that was I kind of fell into screenwriting through him. And yeah, that just slowly became took over everything I was doing, and now it's like the main thing I do. Um, yeah, and in the meantime, like I said, I ended up after that, after Edinburgh. Uh, in Edinburgh, I met who is now my wife, Dima, and so she ended up moving to Manchester for like to keep studying. That's why I ended up there. And then she's Syrian, but she lived in California before I met her. So we ended up back here. That's why I'm here now. So I'm now currently in LA.
Brilliant. And in terms
Yeah.
of then, like, as your craft is growing, because, like going from shorts to a feature film, and that I was just wondering as well as like, how are you building out your toolkit that whole time? And you were doing copywriting as a day job
Yeah,
outside
still
of
am,
that.
unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, still, but I mean that's
Yeah,
language, it's
yeah,
storytelling in a very practical
yeah,
sense. Do you feel like these elements feed into it?
yeah, yeah. Like, I feel like coming at film kind of without studying film. Like, I always loved film, but I never even sat down and kind of scrutinized films for my own sake. I just was a fan, and so when I first started writing screenplays, it did take me a while to kind of get used to them. But when I was writing short stories, people always said that they felt kind of cinematic, like and there was always lots and lots of dialogue in everything I wrote. I love writing dialogue. It's one of my favorite parts of writing. So it was like it felt natural for me, but it was also a new format, so there was a lot of learning. I remember I just downloaded like tons of or film scripts of the films that I loved, anything I could find online, and just started copying a lot of the formatting, but also found that like everyone wrote a bit differently, so you could have a bit of freedom too.
And was there any ones that really inspired you, or like good or bad? I suppose you don't want to be ragging on like you're like, I never want to do that, or maybe that's not my style.
Yeah, yeah. I think the style would have been slightly different, but I remember getting, the ones that I really liked at that time were like In Bruges, um, The Assassination of Jesse James. What else did I get my hands on? Yeah, stuff like that. I can't remember what else, but just Paul Thomas Anderson films. Like my influences have changed a bit in the last few years, but at that time when I first started, they were the ones, and they're all great, writers, and they all have different styles. So it was really, really cool to be able to find that. Yeah.
And with Brendan as well. So in
Yeah.
terms of collaborating, maybe on the short film element, like, are you going to be on set if you can? Like, I mean, obviously, it's
Yeah.
the States is there. Are you
Yeah.
like learning from, you've envisioned something in your mind, and then when it comes out, it's slightly different due to
Yeah.
practical reasons. Like, are you kind of like assessing and taking all this on board?
Yeah.
What's your kind of growth pattern, and how you're evolving at that point?
Yeah, definitely. Like Brendan's really collaborative, and I was like open door, like to be on set as much as I wanted, and like he would encourage it. So for the first two short films we did, I was on set the whole shoot and just watching it, and like I had never been around a film set before that. I didn't even like know what to expect. So, yeah, they're big learning curves, knowing what translates properly. Something that might look really good on paper doesn't really just feel very well, and something that's more understated and more spontaneous might work better. So I love the way we work because it's very loose and there's a lot of improv. We aren't like married to the script ever. I'm always constantly rewriting. Like I loved being on the set because I'm rewriting the script as I'm going, which is just a really nice way to work. Even though they had me doing continuity or something on the first short film, I was like, I was brutal at it. I missed loads of things. But then we brought that process to the feature film then as well. So the feature was like really like nice in how we built it because it actually before the short film Christy we had a feature film idea. So we went back to that and we had a treatment and then I think yeah before I wrote the actual screenplay we got funding like to do a scriptment which was really nice because it was kind of me going back to writing short story style. So a scriptment is just like a treatment and a script kind of together. It's basically like a novella. It was like 45 pages that was just the story of the film from start to finish without it being in screenplay format with dialogue peppered in. So that was actually what I first wrote.
And this was before the short. So was the short a spec?
No, sorry, this was after the short. This is when we started first developing the feature, yeah.
When you guys are kind of like, workshopping the ideas down to that final script development, because I'm going through the process. I'm just going to needle into little things and then get to and then kind of dig into the film.
Yeah.
But like in terms of you guys are like developing your ideas. Do you guys have a slate that you're working on and you're putting in for funding and whatever is there goes? Do you guys know you're going to shoot something by hook or by crook? Like what's your or do you pitch ideas and Brendan pitches ideas?
Yeah, it kind of we don't really have like a built up slate that's with anything else in development. We kind of like bounce around a lot of it. There's been loads of stuff that we've, written down or had even like pitch decks for that we might go back to. We're always like returning to stuff. But it was like with the Christie like one, especially because of the people we met, because of the cast and it just everyone who came on board, like it became such a special project. We just kind of threw all of our focus into that one. We're kind of coming off the back of it now, and we do have like other ideas that we had that we kind of parked. So that's kind of it. It was Christy became everything for the kind of years we were working on it.
And the short, like, was it a case of after when you guys were working on it, did you know, like, did you kind of get an instant, like, oh, this is the one, this is going to be the breakout one, this is the one that's going to land and do well at festivals? Were you kind of getting that vibe, or is it always like you're just minding your own pot?
I kind of, Brendan probably would say yes. I'm a bit more like I don't really know how to gauge things in how other people will receive it. I definitely felt like a great buzz and felt like it was really special. I didn't know if it would garner much, massive interest. I didn't really like, I don't really care if it does or not. If I feel a good feeling about it and I'm into, like, I'm kind of making, I like to make things that I think, I don't like, if a handful of people even loved it, I'd be happy. I don't expect like everyone to love something. So I didn't know it was gonna like, lead into the feature and the way it did. I hoped that it would be good enough that we would be able to then develop the feature, but I didn't know there would be the kind of buzz we're getting around it now. But having said that, that's just my own kind of maybe like pessimism or, whatever. But I think definitely the minute we started making the Christie short and we found the cast and we were even in the casting process, like we had Amy Rowan casting with us and we did a day up the Northside in Cork City where my first encounter anyway with a lot of the cabin crew kids who now a lot of them are 17, 18. They were tiny, they were 10, 11. When they first came in the door, even like I was like, there was such a vibe off them. Like they were hilarious, confident, sweet, charming, and just like such performers. Like so, the minute they came in the room and because we'd done For You already a short film and that we had a brilliant experience on that, and then this felt like a lovely kind of next step from For You, and it definitely felt like again just like an even better buzz again. Like not saying like For You was brilliant, but this felt like who are these kids? They're like so good. We have to work with them. And the short film set itself was like, it was 3 days I think, and it was a great vibe. Like everyone who worked on it was so lovely. People seemed to be really excited to work on it, and we'd also got like funding from Screen Ireland Focus Shorts. That was our first time getting that. So we had, that kind of backing was so important as well. It just felt like you could, you know, do a bit more than we could, but with the previous film, just throw everything into it. So great buzz, great people working on it. The cast and crew, everyone got along really well. So the minute we were done with the short, we definitely like had the fire in us then to go back to the feature idea and start developing it.
And tell me about where Christy came from. Like, where was the origins of the idea first?
Yeah, it kind of a lot of different strands, but the very original origin, I remember very clearly. So I was living in Manchester at the time, and I was working in a secondary school there as a teaching assistant. And the school like was in an area like a working class area of Manchester called Whitenshaw. And then Brendan was in Cork, and he had gone up to Knockneeny on the north side of Cork City, and he was taking photos on bonfire night up there, like June 23rd. And he took these like lovely photos, capturing like bonfire night, which is different in Cork. I think you have family and based in Cork, it's like this, it's in the middle of summer instead. So he had these lovely photos, but he said that he was talking to these young fellas at the bonfire, and something in them just kind of sparked an interest in him about how like they were hanging out to the side of the bonfire and kind of drinking cans and being a bit like cheeky to Brendan at the start. Whereas the younger kids who were like 10, 11, 12 were like building the bonfire. They were like doing, being so industrious and having, more involved. Whereas the older kids probably felt like they were too old to do stuff like that now. And they were just kind of, trying to be a bit cooler and more mature. But he's kind of, he got chatting to them and had a really good conversation. But he was interested in how, when does that change? Like, when do you stop being a kid and you're about to enter adulthood, and what are the insecurities that you have around that? And specifically in that area. So when he started saying these ideas to me, they just resonated with me because I was working with that age group at that time anyway. I was working with like 11 to 16-year-olds. So we sort of we always wanted to make something, our next film in Cork. Like the first short film was in Dublin. So we wanted it to be kind of a love letter to Cork City as well. So we developed the idea around the bonfire for the short film, and the kids building a bonfire, but the character being a 17-year-old who's a bit too old to do that, but is now about to go out into the world. And it was a very simple short film. It's just he just goes to get a job, and he doesn't get it, and he's kind of judged by the interviewer for like where he lives and how he dresses and stuff and his accent. So it's quite simple, but what I think why it did well was because instead of just focusing on Christy, that would have been a good short anyway, but it was bringing that whole community around it. And like I love ensemble pieces. I love big films with big characters, lots of characters. So it was a joy to write, and I think we hit on something that we really enjoyed, and I was like, we got to do this again.
Yeah, you got that kind of like warm, honest city humor.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the thing where it's like people kind of say what they mean, but then they don't say it more sometimes, and it's really warm. Okay, so as that was kind of doing the festival rounds and you saw how people were responding to it, were you kind of edging now to get working on the feature film?
Yeah, so we off the back of that, we both kind of were lucky enough then to get agents in London, and then they started like sending it around to production companies, the short. And it was great because the kind of plan that we had worked out. Like, we were very lucky in that we were like, we have a feature idea, but no one's going to let us make a feature yet. So let's try and make a short film first. And then that became our like proof of concept, really. We had this short film. We were like, if you like this, we have a feature idea built around it that's going to flesh it out more. And so they were just sending the short film to people. I think we had a treatment, like a story idea, which was very different, I think, to what Christy ended up being, but that was ready to go too. So we got like meetings in London with a lot of production companies, which was it was quite surreal. Like, thinking back on it now, it was quite surreal. And then we met with Marina Brackenbury. Who ended up being our producer for the feature. She was working with Scott Free at the time, but she ended up going out on her own. And she was the first person. Like, a lot of people, like, we had great conversations, but she really liked it, really got it, really got what we were trying to do, and we just got along with her really, really well. So she was the first person to come on board, and then slowly we got in with BBC Film, Screen Ireland, kind of got then Meredith Duff, another producer from Wayward, absolute legend as well. And shout out to Rory Gilmartin as well. They're all our producers there. They came on board like, bit by bit and started helping us to build it. The COVID pandemic happened, then it kind of put a bit of a delay on things. Kind of it. So it probably took a little bit longer. But yeah, we were away and ready to go then, and it was a joy to start building the
And
future.
yeah, so talk to me then about like drafts of the script. So like once the short is in motion, is that something kind of you're doing on spec? Are you applying for development funding?
Yeah, there was kind of other people doing that for us, the producers, and so we got I can't remember the layout. We got development funding later from Screen Ireland. Like I can't remember there was a reason like they went to different maybe just deadlines or whatever. But we got BBC film first, and they financed it, but they didn't like greenlight the film for a long time. They were giving us development funding to write, as I said, the scriptment. Um, they financed workshops with the actors, which was brilliant. So it was a very loose and organic kind of method, which was really really nice to work that way. And then I think later, then once the film got greenlit by BBC and they backed it fully, I think Screen Ireland then also gave us funding.
Okay, you were doing the scriptment, which
Yeah,
sounds so fun as well, that like putting things
yeah,
in formats. So you're working on that, you're kind of visualizing things. Then yourself and Brendan are kind of workshopping with actors to flesh things out to
yeah.
like, and yeah, that sounds like a very kind of tactile way instead of
Oh, it
like
was amazing.
sitting hunched
Yeah.
over a computer.
Yeah, 100%. It was lovely. So like we took the script, we got this, I can't remember if it was 1 week or 2 weeks, but we got a workshop set up with the actors, and a lot of the actors had been on the short already, but there was a few new ones, so it was great to like who are key characters in it. Like Emma Willis, who plays Stacey, she was coming on board. Ian Tabone, who plays the cousin Jamie, like they were new, so it was like bringing them in and making them feel comfortable, and but also like we brought the scriptment in, and we ended up not doing many scenes in the workshops. It was actually like a lot of backstory and them getting used to the characters. We had a brilliant acting coach from London called Toby Clark, and he was unreal. I don't think like me and Brendan could have done what we did without him. We definitely couldn't have done what he did because he had all these tools and devices and kind of just little stuff. He comes from a theater background, so he had all these different things, a lot of them that he had brought up, created himself to get the actors into the story. It was brilliant. And then from that, I got lots more material, new material that to go back, and then that's when I wrote the screenplay, leading into the proper rehearsals and shoot.
And I'd love to see the screenplay because, like,
I'll
if
send it
anyone
there.
hasn't, yeah, if anyone hasn't seen it, um, like Christy is such an internal character. Like
Mm,
he's
mm,
so quiet and never says what he means, which is beautiful because it's all there
mm.
in subtext. And you watch it kind of quietly, like there's these kind of quiet shifts that he goes through, and nothing is instantaneous or quick, or it's these
Yeah.
kind of like beats as he's moving from decision, and it's all internal. And I would love to see how that reads on a page because like watching it, it's like it's something very fresh to watch in a film. It works so exceptionally well,
Oh, thank you.
and it's very very moving, but like speaks true to his character and his, like the concept of Dawson's Creek, a highly verbose 17-year-old explaining the most ridiculously intense concepts,
Yeah.
isn't authentic. Like it's not
Yeah,
true,
yeah,
but this
yeah,
kind of like quiet young man struggling and all the
yeah,
different things pulling him in different directions, and you're not and not verbalizing it, and
yeah.
even making little jokes about it. He's like, "Sure, I wouldn't be saying it."
Yeah,
And even that it is an ensemble piece because it's as much about his arc as it is about the
yeah,
brother's arc, as it is
yeah.
about, like the extended members of the family. So like all of that isn't necessarily the most cliched first act structure. This has to happen here. This like so I'd be very curious to like what that process was. And like so with the actors, do you know what those beats are, and how do you put that even on the page for them to know?
Yeah, 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 because stuff can be missed easily. Like, you're dead right. I think Marina, the producer, was actually um took me aside and Brendan like in the rehearsal week right before the shoot, and was just made sure that I highlighted very clearly beats like that in the script. So like with highlighter, even just like physically just on the page for some of the actors, that like there's crucial things sometimes. And she like I love Marina because she always got the subtleties, even if I kind of would forget them sometimes. Like stuff that was in the script that I knew was in there, but I wasn't like so aware of how maybe important they were. And she would be like Dan, Danny needs to look a certain way. He needs his face, like he needs to have this emotion on his face right now at this point, or else we're gonna miss it. And I was like, yeah, shit, you're right, So it was, yeah, it was even just like, yeah, more like in a more boring sense, like just underlining certain things, putting things in bold sometimes, just whatever you can to like make it stand out a bit. Is very important sometimes.
It's so funny. And then the dialogue, like it's very witty and there's a lot of emotional turmoil happening underneath back and forths that are very kind of glib and quick-witted. Is that stuff that because you said there's quite like a free-flowing space between you guys and the actors. Have you guys been kind of prepping that in their voices and things like that beforehand?
Yeah, so because I knew a lot of them already over from the short film, and then just kept that relationship after the short film, we were always in touch. So especially for Danny and then Dermot Noyes, who plays Shane, like I knew exactly who I was writing for, and I knew their humor even and their just subtleties. So that was very natural. But then finding like for Stacey, she was new. Leona, brilliant performance from Cara Cullen. She's an absolute star. Like it was her first film. Writing for them, like, and I got to meet Cara and Stacey, and got Helen Bean. Like, oh, she's like, I'm a huge fan of Helen Bean. Like, it was amazing when she came on. So they were the new characters I was writing for. It was very important for me to get to know them a little bit before the shoot. So the workshop week was brilliant for bringing, especially Emma and Karen, and then I kind of got to know them through that, and started writing for their voices more. But also, it wasn't just me, obviously. Like we gave, we wanted a lot of input from the actors too, and just bringing their own persona in, and like some of the stuff in the film is like fully improv that I didn't write. Some of it, even like one of the key scenes in it. I don't want to give like any spoilers or anything, but there's like a kitchen scene where there's like a dance. That's all I'll say. But that was actually sorry, Emma's idea in the workshop. So I can't like claim the credit for even that she came up with that idea, and then they improved it, and then I would have like written the version that went into the film. So there was a lot of improv, and then me working with the improv and getting it on the page, and obviously crafting it a bit sometimes. But some of it was just on the day, even like stuff I can't claim. Some of the stuff that gets big laughs, and like that was all you, that was the actor. So it was a lovely process.
And in terms of different drafts, so before, was there much that differed from maybe the original treatment or like kind of like pitch to get your development funding to write the
Yeah.
script and then the
Yeah.
final thing?
Definitely there was. There was a lot more in there. The stuff that got stripped away. At some points, it was a bit too. There was too much going on. And you weren't like one of our biggest notes in the earlier drafts that we kept getting was that we don't have a strong enough sense of Christy. Like, we're not in his head enough, and there was too much going on around him because there's so many other characters. Like, it's already the final version of it is quite busy enough anyway, but there was even more characters at some point. There was spontaneous like encounters he was having, just like random things happening to him on the streets and stuff like that, which were like fun and really good. But yeah, we had to kind of that the opening section of the film is very close to Danny now, and it's like you're really with him. I think that came slowly over time, finding much more space with him, be in his head a bit more. So yeah, the drafts were a lot of them were some of them were bigger changes, like there was bigger scenes that got taken out and stuff, but a lot of it was tweaks that just kept getting more and more feedback that was, okay, that draft you did a lot of the things we asked. Now let's see what we can do in the next draft. So it was just a lot of it was trying to just hone in on Christy, where his head would be at, how he's feeling, and what are his worries, and fears.
And I just think it's so beautifully portrayed. Getting Berlin as a premiere initially might have been very exciting. I mean, it is a festival where there's a lot of like great producers, great eyeballs on it, but unfortunately it didn't work out well. So we were, Film Ireland was originally supposed to, you were going to chat with Naomi, our brilliant correspondent there, but that unfortunately didn't. You highlighted a few things to us that surprised us and made us rethink
Yeah.
a couple of things. But I was just wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about the importance of the stand that you made.
Yeah. I mean, like, so I had been aware of what had happened at Berlinale the year before anyway, so it wasn't like I found out we got in and then was suddenly like reading about this stuff. I had been aware of it and was reading about it anyway, and I knew that we had sent it out to Berlinale, so I was kind of waiting on that one to find out, wondering if the boycott would be called again for 2025. So it was something I was kind of waiting for anyway. Yeah, they're just the previous year. I won't go into too much. Obviously, people can read about it online. I don't want to take up too much time, but like there was just, people felt and there wasn't space made for Palestinian filmmakers in the same way that they would normally do for like they made, they did a huge showcase for Ukrainian filmmakers in 2022. I don't know if I'm getting my years right here, 2022 to 2023, which is great, obviously. And then, but when after October 7th, there was like a very pro-Israel stance taken by obviously the German government, who also, they run the Berlinale. So then at the 2020, what year is it right now? The 2024 festival, like when people were trying to make stances in support of Palestine, they were censored and repressed. And then the No Other Land film that played, like the culture minister Claudia Rath of the German government, who oversees the Berlinale, was at the screening and she clapped, and then she got abuse for clapping for the movie, and then she said that she was only clapping for the Israeli filmmaker, like she would never clap for the Palestinian filmmaker. So like it's just overt racism, really. There's no beating around the bush, and I didn't want to be a part of that. I didn't want to be, I would have felt terrible going to a festival, shaking hands with people like that, or going. I feel like you're endorsing them there. Anyway, there was many reasons, but I just gave that as one example. But people can look up the boycott call. So Strike Germany, which is a big group that has massive signatories on it, from like people like Sally Rooney and I believe Kevin Barry, Colin Bard, a lot of writers signed this pledge the year before to like boycott German culture institutions. So anything that's affiliated with the German government, because of they're not just pro-Israel, they're also arming Israel. They're the second biggest arms exporter after the US. So they called for the strike of Berlinale because of they said that people had tried to raise their voices at the previous year and use their platform to protest, but it was just the repression was just so bad that like they just felt like you couldn't actually work with this. You just should boycott it, which I agreed with. And then Filmworkers for Palestine, which is another group that was set up. I had signed that in the early days of them being set up, and they also called for the boycott. So I decided to join the boycott, and then closer to the Berlinale, the main BDS group, like the huge umbrella one, they also endorsed it, and PAC-B as well. So yeah, it just felt like the right thing to do. A few other like filmmakers joined it. There's a brilliant Syrian Palestinian filmmaker. He made a film called Diary of a Siege. I definitely recommend anyone to watch it. It's pretty harrowing, but it's a beautiful documentary about Assad's regime putting a siege on a Palestinian refugee camp in Syria called Yarmouk. And then Philip Rizek, a filmmaker. I think he's based in Cairo in Egypt. So they also like joined the boycott, which was great to see. And I did hear, because I spoke to the heads of the Berlinale beforehand to kind of gauge them and see if they were going to do anything different to kind of answer the boycott call. And what was I going to say? That oh yeah, they kind of said to me that they were having a harder time that year. I think a lot of people avoided the Berlinale, so it'd be interesting to see how it goes next year. But yeah, that was the long story short why I decided to boycott.
No, I think what you're doing as an artist and a writer is using your voice to share concepts and thoughts and ideas that are important to you, because we didn't even know, it hadn't even crossed my newsfeed. Now I'm in different circles and I'm just like spotting that, but I think it's like that. It's raising awareness for causes close to your heart, and there is something that you're organizing, or that is being organized.
Yeah, I'd love to if I could share a link with this if possible. Yeah, it's just a fundraiser. We shared it at the Christy screening in Cork as well for a mother and her two young daughters in Gaza. Her name is Asma, and she's just been trying to survive the last almost 2 years now. it's just to get to donate money to her so she can, buy food for her kids. So I'd love if we could share that out. Thank you for raising that.
Absolutely. So that we'll make sure to include that in the link to the
Thank
podcast
you,
as
Gemma.
well.
Really appreciate that.
Of course, no problem. And then also you have like just a very interesting article as well that we'll put all these things in the
Oh,
link.
great.
Because I think part
Thank
of
you.
it is that you're like passionate about telling stories, but it's also about humanity and investigating what makes people tick. And then when you see injustices and things that upset you, that you're using your voice in a very constructive way to help, which I think is just really important. So
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I mean, I feel useless. Like, I wish I was doing something really physical. Like, there's so much, I don't do. Sometimes I feel terrible or just like sitting around while this is happening. So, and if, it's tiny what I'm doing, but it's like at least trying to use. It's the only thing I know. I don't even like have a big platform or anything, but like if someone wants to give me, I had no platform last year. I have a tiny one now, so I'll use it if I can.
and just give us like a kind of overview as well of the article because I think it was very interesting just about human animals.
Oh
The
yeah, yeah. It's just something I've been thinking about I hadn't written any like nonfiction since I was in college studying history, and it was just nice to go back and use that part of my brain. I love researching. I love to I'd love to write more period pieces too, in film as well, like because I just really really love researching. So yeah, I pitched that there's a newer online publication called Rundale, and they're really good. They publish just they're Irish and they publish loads of stuff about say like the housing crisis or the ecological issues in Ireland, and then just lots of political stuff as well. I was reading um their articles anyway, and then they had an open call, so I just pitched to them this thing I've been thinking about a lot, which a lot of people I think in Ireland are thinking about right now, about the parallels between the dehumanization of Palestinians and how we were dehumanized. So the article is just about dehumanization and how showing historical examples of how that was used against the Irish, but also to not just stop there and talk about in the current day how the far right in Ireland are using the same language and white supremacist ideas to kind of place the Irish as a higher caste, higher kind of type of human than newer immigrants into the country, especially if they're not white. So yeah, I was just marrying a lot of those things together.
and it's
That's it.
so like in so many ways hypocritical because we were not perceived to be white for so long in so many different
Yeah.
places. So now like things like that are very, very disappointing to see.
Mm-hmm.
That like yeah, and that colonial attitude and
Yeah.
adaptation of that way of thinking of like we're in charge, we're better. Like
Yeah, I think the kind of point I was making was that you kind of have a choice. Like, we are white or considered white, and you can either tap into that, which these people do. Like you can buy into that ideology and say, oh, we're white, so we're superior. Or you can refuse it and you can just reject that notion and, remember the damage that's done with ideals like that, and kind of ally and align yourself more with people who are also, in that bracket dehumanized.
yeah. And in terms of storytelling again, so even like to bring it back to Christy, he's
Mm.
somebody who like his voice and his perspective as an individual wouldn't be one of power. I would in terms of storytelling and the type of characters that you want to explore and go forward telling, is there anything
Yeah.
like I know everyone's always mysterious and it's a big slate and we just come back and it's all fortuitous, but even just kind of like broad strokes, what are your
Yeah.
ambitions? What are the stories that you want to tell? And are yourself
There's
and kind of
Mhm.
tinkering away at stuff now that we can
Yeah.
see?
I'm always thinking away and just kind of, it's easy to kind of come up with ideas. It's harder to get them into fruition or get someone, obviously to commit and but I have lots of things that interest me that I'd love to work on. I mean, I think mother and baby homes in Ireland is something that sometimes people think has been done. Like they're like, oh, don't make another film about that. But you can't stop talking about it. There's a million angles you can find on it, and like the institutionalization in general, just in our country, of people who are on the margins or looked down upon in society started with women and the mother and baby homes, and it continues today with people in direct provision. So I think and in the care system, which we kind of touched on with Christy, but there's a lot more to be explored there too. So I think that's stories like that interest me. I think there needs to be more financing given to people in Ireland who are not just from a white Irish background. That like there's so many interesting stories to be told that look more critically or just look from, a different perspective on Irish culture. They're Irish stories too, and I think I'd love to see or work on or work with people who were telling stories about the kind of, first and second generation of, what people call the new Irish, but like people who come from, just immigrant families.
So if anyone knows about any ideas that they're like emerging screenwriters or
Yeah,
guys are
definitely.
acting that they want to partner, they'll have to the
100%.
American time zone. But yeah,
So they're kind of generally stories I'm interested in. Just and also like if anyone sees Christy, there's a warmth and humor there that I'm very interested in too. So I just trying to find newer avenues for. And as I said, period too. I'd love to like write something set in Irish history that's maybe a little bit different to the Michael Collinses and that that's more nuanced and just kind of grounded, like doing something like Christie but set in the past.
fabulous. Well, we look forward to watching that. You'll have to come back and talk about it then.
Lovely, I'd love to.
Oh, thanks so much.
Thank you, Gemma. I really, really appreciate you having me on. It was absolutely lovely to chat to you.
And thank you so much for listening. So make sure to rate and subscribe to Film Ireland wherever you get your podcasts.